Some stories online are too real to ignore. This is DarkWeb Tales, where real people send me what they've seen, found, and survived. This story was sent to me by a man who asked to remain anonymous. He said it happened a few years ago when he was living alone in a small apartment on the east side of the city. I've changed his name for privacy, but everything else is exactly as he wrote it. He called his story The Whispers in Apartment 313. My name doesn't matter. I moved into apartment 313 because it was cheap and because nobody else wanted it. At the time, I didn't believe in anything. No ghosts, no curses, no voices in the dark. I just wanted 4 walls, a roof, and silence. The building looked older than it should have. Its bricks were too pale, like something had drained the color out of them. The hallways smelled faintly of dust and cold metal, and every sound echoed, not loud, but deep, like the place had swallowed noises for years and was still digesting them. The landlord met me on the stairs, a narrow man in a gray suit, skin the color of old paper. He smiled when he handed me the keys, but it wasn't friendly. It felt rehearsed. "Most people don't stay long," he said. "You strike me as someone who doesn't scare easily." I laughed, but he didn't. Inside 313 was almost bare. 1 window, 1 door, 1 long corridor leading to a bedroom that didn't seem to belong to the rest of the space. It was colder there, even in the afternoon light. The first night passed quietly. The second too. But on the third, I woke up around 2:30 a.m. to what I thought was the wind. It wasn't. It was a whisper, soft, distant, almost polite. A rhythm of words I couldn't recognize. Not English. Not any language I knew. Just breath, shaped into patterns. When I sat up, it stopped. The silence that followed felt heavier than the sound. I turned on the lamp, checked the hallway, the bathroom, the window. Nothing. I told myself I'd imagined it. But the next night, the whisper came again. Only this time, it was closer. The following lines are still his words. I haven't changed them. Tomand. The whisper returned the next night at exactly 2:30 a.m. I didn't check a clock to confirm it. I didn't have to. I woke up with the certainty of it, the way you know the shape of your own hand in the dark. The sound came from the hallway first, thin as thread, like lips moving through a keyhole, then slid along the baseboards and pooled near the bedroom door. I waited, pretending to be asleep. The whisper swelled, not louder, but closer, almost inside the room with me, and then I understood what had bothered me about it since the first night. It wasn't a single voice. It never had been. It was several, stacked imperfectly, as if people were reading the same sentence at different speeds, each one slightly behind the other. When one paused for breath, another carried the syllable forward like a relay. I sat up, and the sound stopped, cleanly, like someone had pressed a mute button. There was no other noise, no traffic, no radiators, no distant televisions. The silence felt curated, like it had been laid down deliberately so I'd hear only what I was meant to hear. The next morning, I noticed the clock on the stove blinking 12 o'clock. Power outage, I thought, except my phone said 2:30 a.m. in the recent alarms list, as if I'd set it and turned it off. I hadn't. I don't set alarms in the middle of the night. I told myself I was stressed and overtired. New places do that to people. That evening, I went out and bought a white noise machine and a door stopper. I put a chair against the bedroom door and wedged a paperback under the frame. It all looked ridiculous, but ridiculous things become reasonable when you're alone. I fell asleep to the hum of synthetic rainfall. Sometime later, I woke to the same precise quiet and the soft lift of air that comes when a room seems to inhale. The chair didn't move. The door didn't rattle. The book stayed where I'd shoved it, but the whisper returned, and this time, it wasn't the hallway or the floor. It was above me, somewhere near the seam where ceiling met wall, running along the perimeter of the room, like someone pacing the border of a map. I listened for words I might recognize. A name, a number, a plea. There were no words, only cadence. The more I focused, the more it reminded me of how people sound when they pray in a language you don't understand. Meaning without translation, urgency without context. I switched on the lamp. Silence fell in a single slice. I left the light on until morning. On the 5th night, I gave up pretending this was ordinary. I made coffee at midnight and stayed in the living room with the TV on low. The show didn't matter. I wanted human voices in the apartment, even if they were recorded years ago in a studio shaped nothing like this place. At 2:29 a.m., the television audio cut out. The picture remained. Laugh tracks flashed in the subtitles, but the speakers gave me nothing. The white noise machine in the bedroom kept whirring, but it felt like it came from a long distance away, as if the apartment had grown larger between rooms. At 2:30, the whispers resumed. I pressed the volume up on the remote. The TV stayed mute, obeying a rule I hadn't agreed to. I stood up. The whisper tracked me the way a motion sensor light follows movement in a hallway. Not aggressively, just attentively. It remained behind whatever wall I faced. When I turned toward the kitchen, it relocated there. When I stepped back to the living room, it slithered to meet me, always the same distance away, as if the apartment were a scale laid under glass and the sound was a mercury bead finding the lowest point. I said, "Hello," and immediately hated myself for it. The whisper paused. When it resumed, a single syllable separated from the rest, something between a consonant and a breath, like a child trying out a letter for the first time and failing. The attempt chilled me worse than any perfect imitation would have. I went to the door, undid the chain, and opened it. The hallway bulb flickered once and held steady. The corridor was narrow and too long for the exterior of the building I'd seen from the street, like a mirror had doubled it while nobody was looking. The runner carpet had a repeating pattern that didn't repeat precisely. Every few feet, a diamond shape elongated, the red thread going thin like a vein under skin. No one stood outside. No doors were cracked. No neighbors' late-night music seeped through. But the whisper continued, unchanged by the open space, still positioned just across the threshold, as if the hallway itself had nothing to do with it. I stepped out and let the door swing mostly shut behind me. The whisper did not follow. It hovered at the boundary like steam rising off a pot, present and formless. I realized then that I was safe only in the ways a person feels safe when they don't understand where the edge is. Down the hall, a metal click broke the stillness. A door, 313's mirror across the corridor, shifted in its frame and opened 2 inches. A rectangle of darkness inside. No light switch flicked on. No chain slid back. I waited. The door eased closed, not latched by a hand, but by gravity. The sound it made was gently final. I retreated to my own apartment, secured the locks, and put the chair back under the handle. The next day I spoke to the landlord. He stood in the entry office that nobody ever seemed to enter. A window looked out on the street, which the city had forgotten to finish. The wallpaper behind him showed a pattern of leaves that overlapped, in a way leaves don't. "Have there been complaints about noise?" I asked. "Only when people are afraid," he said, like it was a category on a maintenance form. "I hear whispering every night." At exactly the same time, he considered me without smiling. Earplugs are more effective than they seem. I don't need earplugs, I said. I need to know if there's a reason for it. There's a reason for everything, he said. And then he did smile, and I hated it. When I pressed, he lifted a 3-ring binder from beneath the counter and opened it to a blank page. He wrote 313, sound complaint with a slow hand, and underlined it twice. The paper indented deeper than the pen required, as if he enjoyed the pressure. I'll have someone check it, he said. Around what time did you say? I didn't answer. He knew. I left with the feeling you get after talking to someone who won't tell you where they're from. All of the details were correct, and none of them led anywhere. That evening, I met my neighbor, or someone who might have been my neighbor, on the stairs. She was carrying a bag of groceries that looked like props. The produce slightly too symmetrical, the bread wrapped in plain paper without a label. She smiled without showing teeth. "You're in 313?" she asked. I nodded. She said, "Keep the bathroom door closed at night." I waited for her to elaborate. She didn't. "Why?" I asked. She tilted her head like a bird listening for worms under snow. "So the mirror doesn't see you first," she said, and brushed past me, her shoulder warm from the effort of holding everything together. I didn't lock the bathroom door that night. I left it ajar, the way a person leaves a question unanswered. I brushed my teeth, stared at my reflection until it felt like we were both being rude, and turned out the light. The mirror across the small room held a thumbnail of me walking away into the dark. I lay in bed with the lamp off, counting my breaths to slow them down. The whisper came, obedient to the hour. And as it unspooled, I realized the apartment had a topology I hadn't understood before. The sound mapped it. Here a curve where the wall met an older wall. There a place where a stud was missing. There a cavity that felt too deep for the square footage. It moved like water poured into a shape. I spoke again, the way you speak to a dog you can't see. "What do you want?" Silence. "Who are you?" I asked, hating how the question made me complicit. Silence again. Then, faintly, another attempt at a syllable. "Not mine." Not human, exactly. A failure in the direction of speech. "Say it," I whispered, surprised by the invitation in my voice. The apartment exhaled, and the whisper vanished so completely that it felt like I had gone deaf. A heartbeat later, 3 soft knocks came from behind the wall, at the level of my headboard. They weren't warning knocks or angry knocks. They sounded like a neighbor apologizing for the hour. I got up. I put my ear to the plaster. The paint was cool and chalky. I couldn't hear anything, not even the building settling. When I pulled away, something small scraped the inside of the wall and fell, like paper slipping down between studs. I stepped back without meaning to, my body remembering doorways from other houses and choosing none of them. The next morning, there was a paper under my door. No envelope, no fold lines. 4 words written in the same shaky hand I would have sworn I'd never seen before. "We're not in the walls." I stared at it for a long time. The handwriting looked like it had been achieved reluctantly, as if the letters resisted formation. The W in "we're" slanted left at the first stroke and right at the last, and the apostrophe hardly committed to being there at all. I slid the paper into a drawer, then took it out and put it back on the table where I could see it, because things in drawers don't stop existing. They only stop being observed. That afternoon, I tried to find the neighbor again, the woman with the groceries. I knocked on the door across and down from mine. No answer. I tried the one beside it. Someone moved inside and didn't open. I went down the stairs and walked the long hallway that felt like a mile when I'd first arrived and now felt like a loop, drawn by a hand that forgot where it started. On the landing, I found a button nobody had pressed in years. White plastic gone the color of tea. A card beneath it read "Call" in letters that had been engraved rather than printed. I pressed it and heard nothing. I was still standing there when the landlord's office door opened. He didn't look surprised to see me. "Did they check the noise?" I asked. "They tried," he said. The time wasn't convenient. "For who?" I said, and he drifted his eyes toward the ceiling as if that was an answer. That night, I decided to do the one thing I'd been avoiding. I would not turn on the lamp. I would listen until the sound finished saying whatever it could not say. I left the bathroom door closed, placed the paper with its sentence on the bedside table, not like a patron saint I didn't believe in, and lay still. At 2:30, the whisper began. It moved faster this time, more urgent, rolling around the room as if it were tracing the outline of my body through the walls. Every so often, it paused, as though awaiting a response. I gave none. It resumed, more hurried, until the voices began to fall out of sync and overlap badly, turning speech into a ragged cloth. Then it stopped. In the pause, the apartment made the smallest sound I've ever heard. A click, like a tongue pulled from the roof of a mouth. The closet door closed when I lay down, shifted open a width no wider than a finger. I watched the black inside it and understood, suddenly, how people can stare at a single dark rectangle for hours and claim afterward they saw someone there. The mind is an animal that does not like to be alone. It will invent a companion rather than admit it's solitary. I waited for the knock. It didn't come. Instead, something brushed the inside of the door, so gently that the wood didn't move. I had the impression, not a sight, not a sound, not even a smell, of cold being organized on the other side. I said, "I know you're there," and hated the sentence as soon as I made it real. Across the hall, a door I couldn't see opened. A draft slipped under my own. Somewhere beyond the bedroom, the white noise machine hiccuped and then resumed the false rain it had promised. I closed my eyes and counted to a number I didn't pick. When I opened them, the closet was shut. The room had not warmed. I slept after dawn, and when I woke, my phone had a draft email, open to no one. The subject line was blank. The body contained a single sentence I don't remember typing. "If you hear them, don't answer." I deleted it and typed it again, and deleted it a second time. Deleting it did not make it less true. That evening, I put the paper with its 4 words back under the door, the way you return a library book to the slot after hours, and waited. No one knocked to reclaim it. When I opened the door later, the hallway was bare and longer than I remembered. I slept with the bathroom door open and the mirror covered with a t-shirt I told myself was there because I didn't want to see the light from the street. At 2:30, the whisper arrived with the certainty of weather. This time, it started saying my name, or something so near my name that it recognized me better than I did. I did not answer. And because I didn't answer, the voices tried something else. They changed the cadence. They tried mine. The story continued exactly as he wrote it. I haven't altered a single word. That night lasted forever. When I woke the next morning, my throat was sore. Not from screaming, I hadn't made a sound, but from holding my breath too long. I spent the day outside. I didn't even take my phone. I just walked. Every street looked the same. Every window seemed to watch. By the time I came back, the sun had already disappeared behind the city's skeleton skyline. Something had changed in the apartment. It wasn't visual. Nothing was moved or broken, but the air felt wrong. Thick, charged, as if static had replaced oxygen. The silence pressed down like a weight. I tried to distract myself. I cooked, but the smell of food turned metallic halfway through. I turned on the TV. But the dialogue was warped. Voices too slow. Laughter slightly too early. I switched it off. For the first time since I moved in, I caught my own reflection in the window, and it startled me. I looked pale, older, my face drawn thin by exhaustion. But there was something else, too. For a split second, my reflection didn't move when I did. I told myself it was tiredness. The mind glitches when it doesn't rest. But I slept less that night than any before. At 2:30 a.m., right on cue, the whisper began again. Only this time, I didn't just hear it. I felt it. A vibration, subtle but constant, rippled through the floorboards, up the walls, through the mattress, like the entire building was quietly breathing. The whisper circled the room in a slow orbit, brushing against corners, testing the space, before settling right above my bed. It wasn't just noise anymore. It was a presence. And then, clear as a heartbeat, I heard my name once, perfectly pronounced, in my own voice. I bolted upright. The whisper stopped instantly, leaving only the faint sound of something shifting inside the wall. That was when I decided I needed proof, something tangible. I downloaded a voice recorder app on my phone and left it running all night. The next morning, I played the recording back while I packed my bag for work. The first few minutes were empty, then static. Then, faintly, the whisper. It was there, right where I remembered it. But there was something else under it. A second sound, buried deep in the noise. It wasn't human. A slow, rhythmic thump, like a pulse. When I raised the volume, my phone froze. The app glitched and closed. When I opened it again, the file was gone. That night, I slept on the couch with every light on. I woke again at 2:30. But this time, there was no whisper. Only silence. I almost cried from relief. But then I realized something worse. It wasn't that the whisper had stopped. It was that it had moved. It was downstairs, under the floorboards. At first, it was faint, like someone humming through concrete. But it grew louder, forming that same strange cadence. The words were never clear, but the emotion behind them was insistence, anger, need. The air felt electric, and then suddenly all the lights went out, complete darkness. Somewhere below, something slammed. Heavy, metallic, thin footsteps, slow and uneven, coming up the stairs. 3 steps. Pause. 4 steps. Pause. Breathing. Close enough to feel, not hear. I stood frozen in the middle of the living room. The footsteps stopped right outside my door. Silence. Then 3 soft knocks. The same pattern as before. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. After a long moment, the knocks stopped. But the whisper didn't. It continued. Soft. Coaxing. Like it was calling me to the door. And then, quietly, a voice I didn't recognize said from the other side, "It's colder here. Can you feel it?" I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. My body wouldn't obey. The whisper shifted into something else. Not words, not breath, but laughter. It was faint, almost playful, but the kind of laughter that comes from someone standing right behind you. I turned around. Nothing. When I looked back at the door, there was a shadow beneath it, a line too dark to belong to normal light. It stayed there for a few seconds, then vanished as if something had stepped back. The whisper faded. And then, once more, silence. He wrote that he didn't sleep the rest of that night. He left the apartment the next morning and stayed in a motel on the edge of town. When he returned a day later to grab his things, the building was empty. Every apartment door was open. Every room stripped bare. No furniture. No signs of life. But his door, 313, was locked from the inside. He said he thought about leaving everything behind: clothes, papers, furniture, even his phone. But something about walking away without answers felt worse than staying. He convinced himself he just needed closure. One last look. He came back at dusk, when the sky turned that color between bruise and rust. The building looked smaller somehow, as though perspective had caved in around it. The entry buzzer didn't work, but the door was already ajar. Inside, the air felt wrong again, heavy, old, and faintly metallic, like a room that hadn't been opened in years. The hallway lights flickered in intervals that didn't match the hum of the electricity. Every other bulb was dim, every third one out completely, casting strips of light and shadow across the corridor floor. The wallpaper had peeled further since he'd left, curling into thin scrolls that looked like they were trying to write something. He walked past the landlord's office. The door stood open. The desk was gone. The binder, the chair, even the blinds had been removed, as if the room itself had been erased from the building. He called out once, no answer. His voice didn't echo. It fell flat, as if the air refused to carry it. At the end of the hall, apartment 313 waited. The door was shut tight, locked from the inside, just as he remembered. But the key still fit. The metal clicked softly, too softly for a door untouched in days. He turned the knob. The smell hit him first. Not decay, not mold. Something older, like stone dust and the inside of a wall that hasn't seen light since it was built. The apartment looked exactly as he'd left it, except for the paper. The same paper that had once been slid under his door now lay on the table again, perfectly flat. No creases, no dust. Only this time, the message was different. Did you listen? He stared at it until the letters seemed to shift under his gaze, rearranging themselves slightly as if they were alive. Then came the sound. Not the whisper, not at first. A steady hum, faint but unmistakable, vibrating through the floor. It came from the bedroom. He followed it slowly. The door was open, the same chair still wedged under the handle, though now it was on the inside of the room. The window was closed, the blinds drawn, the bed untouched. The hum grew deeper, resonating like a low, mechanical breath. It seemed to come from the wall behind the headboard, the one that had knocked before. He pressed his ear to it. The surface was cool, smoother than paint should be. Beneath it, something pulsed, not like plumbing, not like machinery. It felt alive, like a faint heartbeat moving through stone. Then he heard them again. The whispers. Only this time they weren't distant or muffled. They were clear, immediate inside the wall. Dozens of voices, layered and trembling, each one whispering fragments of thought, all out of sync. Names, pleas, laughter, and something like, "We found you." He stumbled backward, but the sound followed. The wall itself seemed to breathe, the plaster shifting like muscle under skin. He ran for the door, but when he reached it, it didn't open. The knob turned freely, but didn't catch. He slammed his shoulder into it, again and again, until the whispering stopped. When it did, the silence pressed against him like a physical thing. He stood there panting, forehead against the cold wood. Then, from behind him, just over his shoulder, came a single, Voice, "You shouldn't have listened." He turned, but the room was empty. The whisper was gone, the hum gone, everything perfectly still. He didn't remember leaving. He didn't remember locking the door. But somehow, the next thing he knew, he was standing outside the building, key still in hand, as if the apartment had gently pushed him out. He said he tried to go back the next day. The building was gone. He walked up and down the street 3 times, checking the address, counting the houses. The number 311 existed. The number 315 existed. But between them was a narrow alley full of bricks and old posters, as if nothing had ever been built there. He asked the people living nearby, but nobody remembered a building at all. One man laughed and said, "That lot's been empty since before I was born." He thought they were lying until he saw the photo. He found it in an old newspaper archive online, dated 15 years earlier. The article was about a fire. Electrical fault destroys apartment block on East 9th. All residents unaccounted for. Below it was a photo. The headline mentioned one apartment by number, 313. He ended his message there. No signature, no way to reply. But in the email header, under the sender's address, was a timestamp, 2:30 a.m. and attached, a file I can't open. Every time I try, my computer freezes for exactly 3 seconds. Then the screen flickers, and I hear it. A faint, layered whisper, just enough to sound like someone saying my name.